The house smelled like lemon polish and unspoken tension. Lena adjusted the strap of her sundress, fingers lingering where the fabric had slipped, a nervous habit. Across the kitchen island, Daniel watched. Not obviously, not in a way his father would notice, but with the quiet intensity of someone studying a puzzle they couldn't solve. "Pass the salt?" Richard asked, oblivious. Daniel's hand brushed Lena's as he reached for the shaker. A spark of contact. Gone too fast. She inhaled sharply. 6 months. That's how long she'd been married to Richard. 6 months of playing stepmother to a man who barely looked at her, until tonight. Daniel was supposed to be at college. That was the arrangement, him in the dorms, her and Richard in this too large house with its 2 quiet halls. But finals had ended, and here he was, all sharp cheekbones and restless energy, his mother's eyes in a face that refused to soften. "You're staring," Daniel murmured, swirling his wine. Lena's grip tightened on her fork. "I was just wondering when you'd redecorated your room." A lie. She'd peeked in earlier, surprised by the sketches taped to the walls. Charcoal smudges of hands, trees, asterisk her profile asterisk from Thanksgiving. Richard chuckled. "Since when do you care about decor?" "Since never," Daniel said, holding Lena's gaze. "Guess she's just being asterisk thorough star." The word dripped with something that didn't belong at a family dinner. Lena's pulse jumped. Later, she scrubbed a plate with unnecessary force. The faucet ran loud enough to drown out thoughts, but not memories. Daniel's smirk when she'd fumbled the salad tongs. The way his shirt stretched when he'd reached for the breadbasket. Asterisk stop. Asterisk. She was 28, not some infatuated teenager. And he was. Need help? Lena startled. Daniel leaned against the doorway, sleeves rolled to his elbows. A tattoo peeked from his collar, a bird mid-flight, ink stark against sun-warmed skin. "I've got it," she said too quickly. He stepped closer anyway. "You missed a spot." His thumb grazed the back of her hand, wiping away a soap bubble. The touch lingered. 3 seconds. 4. The air thickened. Lena yanked her hand back. "Your father is snoring on the couch." Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Relax, asterisk stepmom star. I'm just being helpful." The title slithered between them, ugly and thrilling. A crash echoed from the living room, Richard dropping his whiskey glass. They sprang apart. "Go," Lena whispered. Daniel didn't move. "What if I don't want to?" The microwave clock blinked 11:11. Asterisk make-a-wish asterisk, Lena thought wildly. Then the porch light flickered out, plunging them into half-darkness, and the choice became terrifyingly simple. The porch light buzzed back to life with a harsh flicker, but the darkness between them remained. Daniel didn't retreat. His fingers twitched at his sides like he was resisting the urge to reach for her again. Lena could smell his cologne, something woodsy and faintly bitter, nothing like Richard's expensive citrus spritz. The contrast made her stomach clench. "You should go to bed," she said, voice barely above a whisper. His laugh was quiet, humorless. "That's your solution. Pretend this isn't happening." Lena gripped the edge of the sink. The ceramic was cold under her palms. "There's nothing asterisk to asterisk pretend." "Bullshit." He stepped closer, invading her space with the confidence of someone who knew she wouldn't scream. "You've been watching me all night. Just like I've been watching you." Her breath hitched. Denial sat heavy on her tongue, but the words dissolved when his thumb brushed her wrist, right over her frantic pulse. A groan echoed from the living room. Richard shifting in his drunken sleep. Daniel's hand dropped. "He won't wake up," he murmured, though neither of them moved. "Not unless we give him a reason to." The implication hung between them, thick and dangerous. Lena's skin prickled with heat. She should have walked away. Should have shoved past him and locked herself in her room until morning. Instead, she whispered, "This is insane." Daniel's smile was all sharp edges. "Yeah, but you're still here." The grandfather clock ticked loudly in the hall as they crept upstairs, avoiding the creaky third step. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs, each beat screaming asterisk turn back. Asterisk. Daniel's room smelled like graphite and fabric softener. Sketches littered every surface, half-finished portraits, landscapes, a crumpled draft of her asterisk by the window, lips parted mid-laugh. "You draw me a lot," she said, touching the edge of the paper. He leaned against the closed door, arms crossed. "Only when I can't stop thinking about you." The confession should have repelled her. Instead, it coiled low in her belly, warm and insistent. Lena turned to face him. Moonlight cut through the blinds, painting stripes across his tense shoulders. "We can't do this." "You keep saying that." Daniel pushed off the door, slow and deliberate. "But your eyes keep saying something else." She had no rebuttal. Not when he stopped inches away, close enough for her to see the gold flecks in his hazel irises. Close enough to kiss. His breath ghosted over her lips. "Tell me to leave," he challenged. "Mean it this time." Lena's fingers curled into his shirt. The clock struck midnight. The clock's final chime still hung in the air when Daniel's lips crashed into hers. Lena gasped against his mouth, her fingers tightening in his shirt as he backed her against the desk. Sketch papers fluttered to the floor. His hands were everywhere, tangling in her hair, skimming down her waist, pulling her flush against him with a desperation that stole her breath. This wasn't gentle. This was teeth and hunger and months of stolen glances finally given form. Daniel broke away first, breathing ragged. "Tell me you don't want this," he challenged, pupils blown wide. Lena's pulse roared in her ears. The rational part of her screamed to push him away. The rest of her burned. She answered by dragging him back in. His bedroom door stayed shut. The house creaked around them like a living thing, each groan of the floorboards a reminder of how close disaster lurked. Lena tried to stay quiet, bit her lip until she tasted copper, but Daniel worshipped every sound she couldn't suppress. "Look at me," he murmured against her throat when she squeezed her eyes shut. When she did, the raw need in his expression shattered her. This wasn't just lust. This was years of loneliness reflected back at her, a mirror of her own fractured marriage. Their joined hands pinned above her head, Daniel whispered the words that would haunt her, "You were never meant to be my mother." After, they lay tangled in sheets that smelled like him. Lena traced the bird tattoo on his chest, its wings stretched toward freedom. "We're terrible people," she said softly. Daniel caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "Or we're the only ones who aren't pretending." Downstairs, a door slammed. Richard was awake. Lena's blood turned to ice at the sound of Richard's footsteps on the stairs. Daniel moved first, tossing her the sundress pooled on the floor. "Window," he mouthed, already pulling on jeans. She barely had time to fasten the straps before the doorknob turned. Lena dove behind the wardrobe as Daniel yanked the sheet straight. "Daniel." Richard's voice was thick with sleep. "Why's your light on?" Lena pressed a hand to her mouth, tasting salt and sin on her skin. "Couldn't sleep," Daniel said, remarkably calm. He perched on the bed, blocking Richard's view of the rumpled sheets. "Drawing helps." A beat of silence. Lena counted her frantic heartbeats. Richard sighed. "Just keep it down." The door clicked shut. Neither of them breathed until his footsteps faded down the hall. Dawn painted the room in pale gold when Lena finally spoke. "This can't happen again." Daniel studied her from the bed, shirtless and beautiful in the morning light. "Liar." She wanted to argue, wanted to summon the righteous anger of a betrayed wife. But her body still hummed from his touch, and the lie stuck in her throat. "I have to go," she whispered instead. Daniel caught her wrist as she reached for the door. "When?" She knew what he was really asking. How long until I can touch you again? Lena pulled away. "I don't know." The kitchen smelled of coffee and guilt. Richard barely looked up from his newspaper. "Sleep okay?" Lena's hands shook as she poured orange juice. "Fine." A pause. Then, without lowering the paper, "Daniel's leaving today. Back to campus." The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the tile. Richard finally looked up, frowning at her reaction. Lena forced a laugh. "Clumsy." As she knelt to gather the shards, a shadow appeared in the doorway. Daniel, duffel bag slung over one shoulder, watching her with that same unbearable intensity. "Need help?" he asked, too innocently. Richard waved him off. "Just say your goodbyes." Daniel crouched beside her, their fingers brushing as they both reached for the same piece of glass. His whisper was barely audible. "Midnight. Garden shed." Then he was gone, leaving Lena kneeling in the ruins of her marriage, holding a shard sharp enough to draw blood.